We are looking at expanding operations into gaming. I can't give you much more of a report than that because things are still pending. When we get to the point of where we have agreements and strategies and business plan adopted, I'll be letting you know. Whatever we do, we're not going to be putting the tribe's assets at risk, and we're not going to be doing things that will harm the way we do business as a tribe. Also in changing times, one thing that happens to some folks is you end up getting old and crabby, and I'm not exempt from that. But I announced in January that I would not be seeking re-election next time, and I really do like this job. It's really an exciting position to be in, to try to do some good for our people, try to use their experiences properly to advocate on behalf of tribal issues, to work with management staff to do the best we can. And I think that time has been good, very generous with me. It's left me in pretty reasonably good health, left me with good friends and relationships, and so it's very important, I think, that we, as an organization, plan for the future in leadership. That me just walking out or somebody getting elected out after a person's been here as long as I have is really not in the best interest of the tribe. It's really not in the best interest of the person who gets elected. We need to have a better plan, and we need to address that in a very systematic manner. So we've been working on some of the policy issues to try to make it happen in an orderly manner, but nonetheless, even now, people can still discuss who would be the successor. I'm not saying this because I'm giving up right now. I think there's still a lot of work to be done while I'm here for another year, and the Executive Council has pledged support of working on our issues jointly. The policy changes that I put forth, I offered them as constitutional amendment mostly because that by putting them in the Constitution, they don't change with the political whims of times, mostly based around people candidacy as opposed to an overall policy, what's best for the tribe. Whereas if you just change the standing rules of order, that can be changed only by a majority vote, as you know. And so that's the reason why I put forth the changes in policy into the Constitution. I think it's important for us to focus on the quality of candidates as they go forward. I think it's important for us to talk more about administrative experiences, successes in administration for people who are going to be serving as your CEO. When you look at what I proposed, look at the current, under the current policy, the president is elected as the person that speaks for the tribe in the political sense, also is the chief executive officer of the tribe. Under the proposition I put forth, that part doesn't change. If you look at the Constitution, the president still can delegate authority out for the president. The option that I put forth is to make it ultimately clear that a president can delegate and hire a chief executive officer, and then he or she would serve as the political figurehead. And that then would allow a person who would be a president that did not have to live in Juneau. And you might say, well, gee whiz, that's a big change. Well, that's the way it was prior to Ray Paddock being president. All the presidents prior to Ray Paddock all served in their political capacity, but lived in their respective communities and did not have to move here to Juneau. And Ray Paddock was the first one that was elected, and then they modified the Constitution at that time to make that the chief executive officer, and we all agreed with it. My second proposal that all of you will love very much is that, the second part of this proposal is that people need to declare 10 days in advance if they're going to be a candidate for any of the offices of president or vice president. Now, that is looked at as being an extra obstacle, but I ask you to turn it around and look at it as another opportunity. I think it gives the delegates a chance to learn the qualifications of the candidates. It gives the candidates more opportunity to make their case. So it's a two-way involvement thing. The delegates have more time to evaluate the various candidates. And it improves the participation of new delegates. It does not exclude them, it improves it. And so then you end up with a more qualified candidate for any of those positions. And under what I'm proposing, I'm saying it's not all or nothing. A person can miss the deadline of 10 days. They just wouldn't be on the ballot. They can write a write-in campaign, as other governments do. If you were to run for a state legislature, if you run for city and borough, school board, you have to get your nomination in, and you have to write out and get some endorsements. The delegate per community formula. When I first got involved on the executive committee and later turned into executive council, we used to have a registration system. What would happen is that you registered during the spring and summer months, and once the number of registrants was tallied, then they would let you know how many delegates you had per community. And so when I got involved in 1976 in Wrangell, we had 56 delegates. And that was based on the 100 number, where you had to have 100 people per delegate. In 1985, the year after I got elected, I put forth a proposition to get rid of the voter registration system, mostly because it was duplicative of the enrollment system, and some people were thinking they were enrolled when they registered to vote, which was not really true. And so the proposition put forth that anybody that was on the tribal rolls that were over the age of 18 would automatically be eligible to participate in the politics, and we would count them for delegates. And that worked well for a while, but we found that the delegate numbers grew so rapidly in the mid-'80s. We changed the number of tribal citizens per delegate from 100 to 150. And that brought down the delegate count about one-fourth of what it was, had grown to. The proposition that I'm putting forward, a proposal, is that we determine delegate allocation for each Clinton Haida community based only on the tribal citizens with good addresses. And let me share with you some of the numbers here. Currently, we have 134 delegates, and this is a little smaller than I wanted it to be because on my computer it showed a little bit bigger. But the delegates under the current system, we have 134, and the communities that you have there shows what they are. The far column, next to the last column, shows what the new delegate distribution would be under what I'm proposing. And if you look at what has happened there, is that you end up with a savings of 28 delegates, showing that there was 4,000 people that we cannot reach. Let me compare the 1986 delegate, which is the second column, and that shows that we had 95 delegates in 1986. And the current 2012 is in the middle, which have 134. Then the change that I'm proposing is in the next to the last column. And notice that if you look strictly at the 86 to 2012, you'll see that Anchorage grew by 57%, Juneau grew by 136%, Seattle by 131%, and the average growth was 42%. Now, if you look at what happened between 1986 and what I'm proposing, there would still be an increase from that time to now for Anchorage by a delegate. Juneau would still have a growth of 10 delegates, Seattle by 5, and we still have a net growth of 11 delegates from 1986. I chose 1986 because that was the time thereabouts when we changed from the 100 to 150 delegates per community. Now, one of the things that I read is that people felt that that's disenfranchising our tribal citizens. The people with the bad addresses will not be taken off the master roll. We still have them on the master roll. That still is there. That will never go away. We'll set up a separate database just for determining the delegate count. And that delegate count allocation will be based on those with good addresses. The points that I want to make in favor of that new formula distribution is that Tlingit-Haida Central Council is a representative form of government. And so therefore, if we do not know a tribal citizen is either in or not in our community, we really cannot say we represent that person. And so that does compromise then our democratic system. The number of tribal citizens that are not reachable because they don't have good address is growing rapidly, very rapidly. And it's largely because our people are transient. And so if we have people moving around and we know it, and we still want to say, well, gee whiz, we represent them, that's not really being accurate or honest with ourselves. The issue and policies under consideration that I bring forth, I know are important, but the issues that we talk about here today are really not that much more complex than they were a decade or two or three ago. We still have challenges of our people, we still pass resolutions, we still do a lot of things, and so we have to ask ourselves, does that warrant then the increase of 42% in our delegates to make the same decision type things that we do today that we did past then? That's the question you got to ask yourselves. I believe that the proposal that I'm putting forth is a practical and fair approach for delegate allocation. It provides credibility to those issues that are not known. Takes away the unknown. Now, the decisions that you make on what I'm proposing will impact our tribe for many generations to come. You have to ask yourselves, what is really best for the long-term preservation of our tribe and our democratic system? I know that there's a tendency to say, well, I'm a delegate from this community, I'm from that community, I ought to defend my delegation. When you're in this body, you are here as a delegate of Tlingit and Haida, period. Yes, you have allegiances to your community and you really need to speak up when you can, but you also need to keep in mind that you represent all Clickitt Haida people no matter where they are. And so we got to think in terms of what is really best for the tribe and not what is my community going to get or more or less of. Another thing is you can look at it from, if you're from a large community, saying, well, gee whiz, you're really taking people away from us. Guess what? You had the benefit of that unknown factor for those years in the past where you've had delegates from your communities not knowing for sure whether you're representing tribal citizen A, B, or C. And so look at it both ways. Now, it won't impact me, it won't impact the administration. It's simply a thing that, are we going to uphold our democratic system and make it work what is best for the tribe in its long term? That's the question we got to ask ourselves. In closing, I want to take a few moments to honor one of our former past presidents, Clarence Jackson Jr., or Senior rather. Clarence was not only a president of Clickitt Haida and one of the people that was involved during the early days of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act and the Clickitt Haida settlement. But Clarence was an ambassador to the communities. He went to your community to stand with you when you lost somebody. He went to the community to share information about Sealaska, Clickitt Haida, any of the national issues, and did not shy away from being in the community and sometimes getting beat up on a little bit. And so I wanted to pay tribute to Clarence, you know, on a personal note, when the cycle of life hit my family and we lost brothers and uncles. Clarence came down and helped me. Being on the Eagle side, you know, I need to have that guidance from my opposite clan. And so he brought it to us, and other people learned from that. And so I really want to take a few moments to pay tribute to Clarence. With that, I'm going to close. I want to thank you very much for your kind attention, and I'm glad to cheer up your day. I've noticed everybody's so happy with my comments, and I want to take a moment to thank my wife, Kathy, for helping me out and being there and supporting me and disagreeing with me always, and toughing me up a little bit as time went by, but I want to thank her for that. With that, I'm going to close, and we'll be happy to address questions. Of course, Corrine has to give her report, and I think it's better if we address questions after that. Thank you very much. Chish, Hawa. Thanks.